there's always more to the story. Join your hosts, Dr. Eric Shaw, prosecutor Ryan Frank, writer Adrian Bonenberger, and comedian Ryan Connor as they follow up on the most recent episode of Baggage. This is Carry On.
All right, welcome to Carry On, supplemental episode to Baggage. Our last episode was with Kyle Mitchell, immigration attorney. And I just spent the last half an hour looking at some of our recent social media posts. We do little clips. Anybody that doesn't know, you can check us out on wherever, Instagram, Facebook. That's pretty much it. And we'll have clips sometimes of those guests that don't want to be or don't care to remain anonymous. We can put little clips from the show in there. What we end up putting up there was just some innocuous clip about I heard the story about a Miami attorney, DHS attorney, the government, basically immigration attorney, that got emotional during one of the proceedings. And then someone commented on social media and that's a lie. Okay, look, you might find it difficult to believe, or, hey, through the game of telephone, something got lost in translation. But I don't think you can speak for all government attorneys in all courtrooms in Florida. That didn't happen. That's kind of nuts. And that's probably the least racist thing that happened with the comments.
Oh, Jesus.
So I said it got bad. It's still going on right now. I don't know what to do about that. I can't police those things,
And we want to put it out there that this is not we are not journalists. Oh, sorry. You are a journalist, Adrian. But we are not fact checking and doing our deep dive into these people's backgrounds. This is supposed to be more about people's kind of emotional state and interesting stories and things like that. But we are not NBC. We are not a major news agency. We are just four guys kind of doing this.
Even more to that, we're not political, right? So this was an immigration attorney that wanted to talk about his experience, which undeniably is stressful. If you're carrying the burden of advocating for somebody in New York City, in this environment, in this climate, sure, you have some stressful job you want to talk about. I would love to have on a government attorney about it's pretty stressful. We're getting a lot of heat from being the bad guys here, but here's what's really going on. Sure, I'm happy to hear from both sides. Here's why that's not going to happen, though, because the people that are making those comments 100% did not listen to the episode. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious that if you're making those kind of just ignorant comments on social media, you didn't even listen to what the episode was. Because I think it was pretty neutral. It was just one person's experience and their vantage point. So
it's probably it's probably some AI bot, anyways.
That's, what I was thinking that too. I was wondering, is somebody just fighting with a bot right now? That just the AI is what's the next racist syllable, or synonym that I haven't used yet?
As a quick aside, did you guys read the article today that AI or ChatGPT was able to get past the "I am not a robot" checkbox thing? On the
oh no,
the authentication.
It's not the Turing test, is it? No.
It's just the simple one of when you have to click "I am not a robot" to get past certain security things.
Yeah.
But it talked about how it is actually telling its handlers what it's doing, and it's I am going to click this box to prove that I am not a robot. And everyone's dot. So yeah, a little scary.
Yeah, I've always said this, man. That scene in Terminator, the first Terminator movie, right before the bomb goes off, she has that dream. I bet you that's one of the best days in humanity. Right before AI takes over, but they're kind of doing all the crappy stuff we don't want to do. I think that's going to be, we're going to be this is pretty good. This isn't so bad. And then mushroom clouds.
It's that or the Matrix. I mean, we're either getting nuked or setting up into battery farms. So
yeah,
that's something to look forward to.
Do you want to go in that direction? You want to talk about conspiracy theories and the simulation and stuff like that? We can, our listeners can go from 5 to 2.
Well, to be precise, The Matrix is also a post-nuclear war fantasy because, we nuked the robots in that one as well. And the ash is why we have to be used as human batteries and the fallout.
I am going to check myself. I didn't know that. I want to talk to you more about that, but maybe not right now.
If you've never seen the Animatrix, it's pretty awesome. And it fills in a lot of the gaps in between there. And it's definitely a good watch from the early 2000s.
Yeah. So anyway, last episode was Kyle, and we talked to him for obviously a while about immigration, but he had a really funny aside story. Once again, we have a guest on that has a much larger social media following than we do, because he got into a little scuffle that was caught on security footage, and it went viral. But I will let him describe that.
So I was on my lunch break one day at a Taco Bell. I was sitting by the door, which I guess in New York City you're not really supposed to do. And I had my back to the rest of the Taco Bell. And I was just kind of in my zone. I had a hearing coming up, so I was eating a light lunch. And a guy comes up behind me, and he's kind of like mumbling, and he's asking for money. So I turn around, I'm like, oh, I don't have money, whatever. I go back to eating, and I have my phone kind of like in front of me, and he comes back and he reaches to grab my phone. Now, I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt, so I was kind of like, okay, here's an arm. And so I grabbed his arm, and I kind of spin him over a little bit away from the door, and I throw him to the ground. And, you know, my phone is free, and I'm over top of him, and he's like, I'm good. I'm like, okay. So I let him up, and I pick up my phone. I'm uninjured. My food is all over the place, but we're both fine. And he just quickly walks out the Taco Bell door. So I'm kind of like sitting there waiting for the police to come. They never came, but I look up and I see a surveillance camera. So I point to it and I'm like, hey, I'm a lawyer. I don't want this guy to sue me saying I like broke his shoulder or something. Can I have the video? And someone went in and they took a video and they got me the footage. And I ended up, first I sent it to my wife and my dad. I was like, I'm okay, but this is what happened. And then I was like, okay, well, I got to send it to like my jiu-jitsu friends. And so I sent it to this group. And then I was like, okay, well, I sent it to like 30 people already. I'm just going to post it on Reddit. And then it kind of blew up from there. And for like a couple days, it was like kind of going viral. And so it was a very kind of odd experience to go through. Nowadays, I don't really think about it too much, but just being in like New York, it did give me anxiety just around people. I always kind of assumed someone was going to attack me from behind. But nowadays, it's been about a year, and I'd say I'm pretty much back to baseline at this point.
Yeah, I do want to see this video. Can I ask you a jiu-jitsu question?
Yeah.
So I always think when I see jiu-jitsu, only time I see it is if it's people on TV, and they always have cauliflower ear. Does that kick in at black belt, or when is that like a foregone conclusion when you do jiu-jitsu, or how does that work?
I think some people are just really predisposed to it. I've seen a lot of white belts get it. Now,
really?
Yeah. But I've been training since 2018. I've never gotten it.
Wow.
Most people I don't think get it, but I'm also the first person to stop like a roll if I think I might actually get like hurt, like injured. I'll just be like, okay, yeah, we're good. Like if someone's elbow is like in my ear or something, like that's how you kind of get it when you get some substantial trauma on the ear.
So it happens from single trauma. It's not necessarily repetitive.
Mix of both,
or it's both.
It's
mix of both.
Acute hematoma. So it's an acute hematoma that happens basically you break a blood vessel underneath your ear, and because it doesn't have anywhere to go, it just kind of fills up like a little bubble, which if you drain it, so if you go to the doctors and you drain it, you may have a tiny little scar, but you're not going to get the cauliflower ear. The cauliflower ear results from that. Then it kind of like tries to heal up, but it has nowhere to go. And so you can actually get like permanent calcium deposits as well as like a ton of scar tissue that builds up there. And that's what a cauliflower ear is.
Wow. Did some people just have kind of bullshit ears, Eric? And that's why it happens to people easily?
No, I mean, you take an elbow to the ear or something, like that's going to happen.
So yeah, that's a pretty wild story because Kyle's an unassuming dude. So you see him and you don't think, I'm not trying to be disparaging against him, but it was like, I don't think he can beat me up. He 100% could beat me up, right? If he's like what did he say? I can't remember from the clip, purple belt or something like that. And in jiu-jitsu, that's pretty cool. I'm not an anything belt, but the cauliflower ear thing was funny because I just had a trial with a guy that I won't get into the case, but he was a jujitsu dude, and he had cauliflower ear, and he had like his friends there, and they had cauliflower ear, and I'm like, no, I mean, like golf, you don't get that with golf. You know what I'm saying? Like there's some things that aren't like a casualty of the extracurricular activity you're into.
The guys in that, and I know it's definitely true of wrestlers. That's like a mark of pride for them. It's a distinguishing thing, like a tattoo or something that kind of like, designates you in that tribe.
Yeah, they're definitely confident. I mean, confidence comes from it, right? They don't give a crap.
If you have cauliflower ear, it means that you are getting the shit kicked out of you on a regular basis. That's not like a one-time deal.
Right.
I mean, I haven't talked with women about this a lot recently, or maybe even ever, but how critical is the ear to sort of advertising yourself as a good, potential mate? Is that something that is like, oh, look at, do people talk about that? Like, look at those ears. So they're so well shaped. Those are just such magnificent ears. Or is it just like,
I think it would help them with the group that they're going for. And
right.
So, other like ass kicking people.
Yeah, right. I think if you're that into it, where you have cauliflower ear, we're saying that term way too much. If you're that into it, your social group is probably fine with it too, right? I mean, you're not going out. Maybe you are going out to a bar and someone's like, "Ooh, what's the story with that guy? He must be really good at fighting."
What's the joke? Like, how do you know if someone does CrossFit? Oh, don't worry, they'll tell you.
Yes.
I mean, this is kind of the same sort of thing. Like, oh, how do you know if you do jujitsu? Their ears.
Their ears, yeah.
There was a guy I served with in the Ukrainian military. There was a guy I served with who had been blown up by a couple of mines, and he was missing one of his ears, and his hair was a little bit longer, and he often wore a hat. He was missing some other stuff too, but I probably would never have noticed that he was missing an ear until he mentioned that when he was sort of going over. I asked him about his injuries because I was curious how it affected him. And that was one of the things that he was missing. And an eye and a bunch of other stuff, but very competent guy. I just sort of feel like I don't want to spend too much time on it, obviously, but how crucial are the ears? Doesn't seem like that, like, maybe it is important if you don't have it, but I don't know.
Says the man with two ears. I don't know, man. My personality, I need the eyes, I need the ears, I need the nose, I need all of it.
Anything. Anything that can help.
Yeah.
He did fine for himself, by the way. This is a guy who did absolutely fine in the ladies department.
He's got some swagger and confidence of someone that's survived a mine attack.
Yeah, got blown up by a mine. He's good. He's still fine.
But anyway, enough about cauliflower ears and appendages. Eric, you just got back from the Jack's Mannequin concert. How was it?
Yes, I did. It was awesome. I got to meet up with Susan at the Dear Jack charity fundraising picnic beforehand. Met a lot of nice people there. We did some of the letters with love there. And we hung out and just checked out Red Rocks for a little bit. And then we went into the show. And I'm not saying this lightly because I have been to hundreds of concerts. This was in the top 5 best shows I've ever seen.
Wow.
And to Andrew McMahon's credit, like, it was exceptional for the fact that, like, Red Rocks has a way of inspiring artists. And I've seen this before with other bands where they will play up to that venue because they are excited to be there. What was really cool with this was he has played there with Jack's Mannequin before, but Something Corporate has never played there. And so this was their first time. And so he had all his bandmates from all of his projects, and he had 3 pianos on the stage, and depending on which band he was playing a song from, he would kind of move from piano to piano. But as the show went on, all of them came out. And so at the end of the show, there was probably about 10 musicians out on the stage with him. Everyone's playing. And on the final song, he brought his daughter out, and his daughter's name is Cecilia, and he has a song called Cecilia the Satellite. And it's all obviously dedicated to her, and she's singing along with him. And you could tell he was just overwhelmed with emotion. And he had this look that even my friend and I saw it, like, as a parent, you have those moments of just like, God, I want to do this with my kid. For me, it was like skiing a black diamond with my kid, or, doing things like that. For them, it was doing a duet at a sold out Red Rock show. And you could tell even his head was about to explode. But it was absolutely fantastic. He played for 3 hours. He was out in the crowd running around, like running up the stairs at Red Rocks, which is impressive. I can barely walk up them. It was an absolutely fantastic show. So
that's cool. I mean, if you're going to bring it, you bring it to Red Rocks, right? That's where you put it up. You put it all
for
together.
sure.
Yeah. That's cool. And that's awesome. And we had a little booth there, right?
We had a little pop-up set up at the fundraising event. We had some swag in their swag bags. I think the biggest thing there was just meeting a lot of the people there and hanging out with Susan and their CEO, Ryan, as well. So it was a good time.
That's cool. For anybody that doesn't know, check it out. That was an episode with Brandon. It's cancer survivor Brandon. And also on the episode was the director of operations, Susan Windishin, for the Dear Jack Foundation, who we collaborated with for that episode. That was fun. I want to do more of those things.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey everybody, Ryan here. I'm with Susan Windishin, Senior Director of Operations for the Dear Jack Foundation, which is a charity that helps young adults between the ages of 18 and 39 deal with a cancer diagnosis and navigate that difficult process. And the Dear Jack Foundation has an interesting origin story. So Susan, can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'd love to. So we were founded by a musician. His name is Andrew McMahon. I always say musician and all-around great human. He'd probably be very embarrassed knowing I say that. But Andrew, he was the front man for the bands Jack's Mannequin, Something Corporate, and Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness. But Andrew had cancer in his early 20s, right as he was about to embark on a nationwide tour with one of his biggest albums called Everything in Transit. He got a stem cell transplant from his sister. He came through and is doing great. This is for him 20 years post-cancer this year. But he really realized in an era where cancer is a huge call to action health item, there's nothing out there for the young adult age range. So he started Dear Jack to bridge that gap and really support these young people in the unique way that they need help and psychosocial support.
An incredible story and a great charity. So if anyone's interested in supporting that cause, please visit the show notes or visit dearjackfoundation.org and donate now. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to add to going back to the Brandon Dear Jack thing. On our Carry On episode, we had a moderately distasteful bit about eating bone marrow as we were talking about a bone marrow transplant recipient. I heard from Brandon and Susan.
Adrian wasn't here for that episode, and his face right now is like, you were doing what?
I've had confirmation that everyone thought it was hilarious and funny. So I was very nervous because I had talked to Brandon beforehand. He thought it was funny. In fact, he said he was like laughing out loud at his oncology visit and really just didn't feel comfortable telling them why. But Susan was the one I was most worried about. And no, she thought it was quite funny too. So that made me feel much better about things.
Well, that's our audience, is Brandon. If we can make him laugh, then it's fine. What it was funny about it is that you and Ryan were just so comfortable. Like it was a natural transition of like, it's so tasty. It's so good.
It's delicious.
Let's see what else we got. I don't know. Immigration. Anything about immigration you guys want to hit on?
Not if we don't want more problems.
I mean, we can do like I do want to stay like kind of like politically neutral on stuff. I thought we were, maybe we weren't.
I mean,
I think just bringing it up at all is going to be considered not politically neutral these days.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's a problem with partisanship is, and I've said this many times before, but it really is like, this is the exact thing that Washington warned about when he was talking about faction. Beware faction. It's that you get into these sort of groups and you have to organize your entire life around something being correct, and if you're, pro-immigration, then, you're on one side of it. And if you're anti-immigration, then you're on the other side. There's no room for nuance. It's actually a tiny number of people. I think, some small number of people on either side, sees something that they feel is objectionable, and they get really spun up about it. I mean, we're a pro-immigration society because the country was made that way. It's just how we were made. Was reading a book. I really love it. I'm about halfway through it now, called Albion's Seed, which is about the first 150 years of British immigration to the United States. And you just sort of can't get away from it. It's like you've got royalists and aristocrats from England and from the continent And you've got, middle class people coming in from Holland and England, and they all kind of hated each other then too, like so much so
Right.
that they had different colonies. Like if you were up in New England, they had one completely different set of rules than if you were down in Virginia or Georgia. And I don't know. So I feel like the thing that really hurts us is partisanship when you do get this false impression from social media from a group of yahoos that are like virulently anti-immigrant. And it's like, okay, you could find those people in any country. And in fact, they're probably coming from a bunch of different countries. And I mean, here's my evidence from this. My evidence for this is that anti-immigration policies are unpopular. So much so that the administration is going after, as they say, illegal immigrants. So they're not anti-immigration, they're anti-illegal immigration, even the Trump administration. But you find people who get into this racist stuff and this anti-immigrant stuff, and it's like that's not normal people. Those are extremists, they're radicals, they're partisans. They're part of some faction. Basically, in every time period, wise leaders like Washington have seen people like that and said, we don't need them. They're not really of any use to society. They're not. They're a mild danger. They're the thing that Washington warned us about. So I don't pay them much mind.
I'd like to believe that the reality is most people are, somewhere in the middle, and bits and pieces of certain policies they agree or don't agree with. I hope that's true. Also, pro-immigration or anti-immigration, I'm pro-math, and we're a country that if we want our GDP to grow, it's a math issue. We don't produce enough offspring to grow the economy. You have to have immigration. How you do it is a subject of debate. That's fine, but I'm agreeing with you, Adrian, that it shouldn't be anti-immigration. It's the way immigration is done. And again, that whole episode was supposed to be about one man's experience trying to fight for what his clients want with pretty big stakes, right? And you can switch out the job, but that's pretty stressful. A lot of stress to put on someone, and that's kind of what the podcast is about. So anyway, I liked it. That was a good one.
The problem with social media is you ultimately get this effect of like the tail wagging the dog. You get this extremist that then will make headlines with what they're saying, and then that starts to become creep into the actual narrative. I think I hate social media. I think we as a species are just not mature enough for social media. It is just incensed everything. Not to say that corporate media is perfect. They're all biased for sure, but there's at least some degree of fact checking. Whereas social media, it just threw it all out there and everyone's opinion was equal. And that is not true. That is just objectively not true. And it's just allowed for this effect of like the far ends of the spectrum are the ones that are choreographing things right now. They're the ones that are leading the conversations. And that's just not how it should be. I don't know. It's frustrating to me.
I was actually very heartened on, I'm on primarily on Blue Sky now for social media. I'm mostly off Twitter. I just have an account there to kind of hold it so that, nobody steals my identity. I post on Facebook, I don't know, once a month, Nextdoor once a month, LinkedIn once every couple months. But I was on Blue Sky the other day, and there's a guy in North Carolina who just declared for Senate, a Democrat. And he, in his declaration, I don't remember what his name was, maybe Cooper, something like that. He talks about how he'd prayed about it and he'd thought about it, and he decided that after prayer, he was going to do it. He was going to run for Senate. It's important. It's important for the people of North Carolina. You might be unsurprised to learn that the very first reactions to this were a bunch of people on the far left, atheists on the far left, whose problem with this was that he was a Christian and they were mocking his Christianity, and they were saying terrible things about how, Christianity doesn't belong in government, yada, yada, yada. This is what I expected most of the response to be on Blue Sky. I would say 80% of the responses ended up being people saying like, the dudes in North Carolina, there are Christians who are liberals. It's fine. Please guys, stop ruining it for the rest of us. Everybody isn't, you can be a Christian and be progressive. You can be a Christian and care about other people. So
that's
I think
generally
it's true.
the point of Christianity. That's where it's supposed to go.
Right? I mean, I really feel like the center is like, you're right, Eric, that like social media does end up skewing things in this weird way. And that it's actually, the country itself, it's a lot of people who are moderate for the most part, and probably moderate/liberal, moderate/progressive when it comes to social issues, and moderate/conservative when it comes to financial issues. That's my read on America. That's like 80% of America. That's my feel.
Uh-oh. I would just went on this big camping trip with my buddy who's a devout Christian, and he and I were having this like intense theologic debate. And like, I'm not full on atheist, but I'm not a denominational religious person. I don't buy into any of them. We've had an evolution of our discussion over the years. And at this point, he's like, I am just proselytizing to you. Like, I would love to bring you to faith. And I was like, well, on the opposite side of that, I am trying to be very careful that I don't somehow convince you to move away from faith. And it was a really meaningful discussion. And we were, up at this place called Trappers Lake. There's no lights there at all. The Milky Way was in front of us. There were shooting stars all over. We're half a bottle into some Breckenridge. Like, it was an awesome evening and great discussion.
That's a perfect location for both a theologian and a scientist.
Very fitting.
When you were talking, Adrian, it had me thinking of when we have the podcast has a Blue Sky account and a Twitter account. And Twitter, it's really interesting. X or whatever. Twitter, I created the account and never posted it. I didn't do anything with it. I didn't follow anybody. It was just a blank slate, which was really interesting as a test case, because what's popping up in the feed with absolutely zero information, right? Because the email is not tied to anything else. It's just the podcast. And it was just hate and vitriol. And like, it was nasty. It was so off-putting. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to be part of this. But there was zero algorithm. So the base was just really negative stuff. I was like, no, I'm not gonna be a part of that. I stand by it. I would like the podcast to remain apolitical. I think both people could be right leaning or left leaning. They're both welcome on the podcast. I think that makes it kind of interesting, and we will stay somewhat neutral. But there are some things that are just so extreme. It's not. Don't put it in a political box. For example, you guys who know who Andrew Tate is, right?
Unfortunately.
This is not a political thing, because if you are an Andrew Tate follower, that's not a political issue. That's just a
cultural.
Yeah, it's a cultural. Yeah, there you go. It's a cultural issue, and a culture that I'm happy to say we're not going to be part of. But for the first time, I kind of went out on a limb picking a jury, and I had a domestic violence case, and I asked a roundabout way who was an Andrew Tate follower, and 7 out of 42.
Wow.
Openly admitted he makes some good points.
Oh,
now. Anybody that doesn't know Andrew Tate, Google him. Find me a good point. Find me something that is neutral. He doesn't have a cookbook. There's nothing neutral about this guy. So I was shocked by that.
And they probably don't see themselves as conservative. They probably see themselves as independents who like to get all the facts, and they don't like mainstream media. So they listen to podcasts and read blogs. It just so happens that those podcasts and blogs tell them vaccines don't work. And, here's the 7 keys to picking up a hot chick, and, only eat meat, don't eat vegetables because vegetables are gay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I haven't heard the vegetables are gay.
We can't get into this stuff. It's just too frustrating and idiotic, and it'll totally derail. Now, you were talking about faith earlier, Eric, and I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine recently. I found it interesting anyway, where they were explaining to me why they had faith in God. And it occurred to me that any reason you could possibly have for having faith in God is a kind of blasphemy, because the reason to have faith in God, the definition of faith itself, is there is no reason. You simply do. That is what faith is. The essence of faith is there is no evidence for this thing, and yet I believe. That is the core of faith. It's not a list of things where it's like, well, I ran the numbers and there's 77 reasons to believe in God and there's only 58 reasons not to. That's not faith. That's like, you put together a weird schema in your head. And I don't fully understand the evangelizing side of Christianity, but that's the church/religion part of Christianity and not the spiritual part of Christianity. I think the spiritual part of any faith system is faith, is that there is this unreasoning belief that you have that things are this way. You believe in God, Jesus Christ, the gods, the pantheon, whatever it is. But that's what faith is. It's not a reason. So I don't think if you're a faithful person, if you're a person of faith, no reason, no fact or rhetorical schema should be able to sway you from that faith. To believe that is blasphemy.
Right. And I've said that, like, you can't combat religion with science to a certain degree, maybe very specific things, maybe. But on the whole, there will always be a mystery to science. We will never know all the answers. And in that space is where religion lives. It's apples and oranges. You can be a scientist and being, a devout person to some degree. So they're not opposed to each other. And it's that same thing. It's a different mechanism. It's that faith. It's that I don't have an answer, but I believe it. That you can't, there is no reasoning. I enjoy those. Who was it? He passed away years ago. He would also always have those religious debates with people.
Not Christopher Hitchens, the atheist.
Yeah, Christopher Hitchens would always have these famous debates with theologians. That's super fun to watch. That's really interesting stuff. But at the heart of it, you're combating faith. You lose that battle.
Well,
you can lose
this
that battle.
goes back to the extremism thing, and it's not the same. But if you have a belief structure in things, regardless of what the underlying infrastructure is, you're not going to waver. And in fact, the more information you stack against it, the more you're going to dig your heels in. And for faith, I kind of look at that as a good thing. It's kind of one of the tenets of it. But it is a belief structure, and once you have that in there, you're not going to sway somebody. I remember this may have been slightly smug and arrogant of me, but I had a conversation similar to with my friend, but with a Greek Orthodox priest. And at the end of the night, I had that thing. I'm like, well, I just, I don't want to go too hard. I just don't ever want to push. I don't want to drop some nugget that ever makes someone question faith. And he's like, I've spent my entire life studying and dedicated to this. If you think some drunken conversation is going to sway me, you are drastically overestimating. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, yeah, you got me on that one. I'm just going to be quiet now.
Well, that brings us to a good point, which is why our next guest is a flat earther, Tim, and he's going to explain to us. No, I'm just kidding with you. We're never going to have a flat earther on here. That's stupid. That shit's stupid. No, but speaking of calling way back to martial arts and jiu-jitsu and all that, our next guest actually is a martial arts Olympian. You know what, though? Charlie doesn't have cauliflower ear. You don't see it in females that often, do you? Do you? You see, I don't know if you see cauliflower. You don't see that anymore. Anyway, and she is super interesting Olympian, judo Olympian, and her journey to the Olympics, really interesting. She has no filter whatsoever and super fun to listen to, an interesting person. So tune in for that. Also, if you enjoy the podcast and want to support the podcast, a percentage of all proceeds go to charity. You can go to thebaggagepodcast.com/support or sign up through Apple Podcast. And if Ryan Connor was here, he would say he check his website out for upcoming tour dates, really all through Canada and the United States for the rest of the year. And that is ryanconnorcomedy.com. And his book, The Party, is a very good read. I just finished 1984, and Ryan Connor's book is like 1984 meets Catch-22. That's actually pretty perfect, I think, description. It is a more lighthearted dystopian future that is very timely. It's very good. Like, he's not, I hate giving him credit, but it's actually a very good book. So check out The Party, his book, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks. Music for Baggage provided by Quincy Ledbetter. You can find his stuff at qledbetter.com. Graphics provided by Megan Weaver. You can find her at meganweaverart.com. Special thanks to our premium members for their support. You can become a premium member by clicking subscribe in your Apple Podcast app or by visiting thebaggagepodcast.com/support to sign up or to gift a membership to someone. A percentage of all proceeds go to charity. If you have any questions, comments, or a good story to share, please email us at thebaggagepodcast@gmail.com.